How awful.
Welcome to the How Awful podcast.
Hi.
Hi, Tanya Lee.
We're here.
We are.
Hi, B.
Hi.
I love you.
I love you.
I can't believe we're doing a podcast.
This is very awkward. How do people do this? Like, how do they start?
I don't know. We're best friends, and this is really awkward.
We've literally been talking to each other for almost 25 years, and suddenly we're like, da-da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, so probably should talk about why we're doing a How Awful podcast.
Yeah. This podcast is going to cover true crime. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about paranormal, lore, cults, celebrity deaths, basically anything one would perceive as awful.
Awful!
Basically, this whole idea is spurred during this amazing quarantine that we have all experienced as an entire planet.
Coming to you live from coronavirus.
Essentially, anytime we would want to watch something during quarantine, basically the level of interest would be how awful.
How awful is it? Yeah.
How awful is this story?
Our security blanket was awful stories for some reason. Like, if we were really stressed or anxious, it was what awful thing can we watch to feel more stressed and anxious?
So essentially, how this is going to work, not this episode, because this episode we're going to talk about our personal experiences and what got us interested in these topics. But moving forward, the following episodes, what we're going to do is at the end of every episode, we're going to pick a category out of a bowl. Mm-hmm. And we will then research said category individually. Mm-hmm. And
we'll have different categories. Like, both of us won't have true crime the same week.
Right. Yeah. So essentially what's going to happen is once we do our research and we investigate this category and the story that we've chosen within that category, we will then swap stories so that the reader, which will either be myself, Tanya Lee, or B, will have to read this story with fresh eyes while the other one interjects and helps the story
like
move along.
Bullet points of awfulness.
So it should be fun. It's going to be an adventure. But yeah, so that's kind of the format, I guess, of how this is going to go so that everybody's aware.
So if you also find solace in awful things, then this is a podcast for you.
So essentially, B and I have known each other for very many years. We're going on almost 25 years, I'd say.
Yeah. I think, was it 23 or 24 we just hit?
We've lost count.
We're from, so, and we met when we were 9, so I think we're on 24.
Right.
You guys do the math.
Yeah, you figure it out. Nobody said there'd be maths.
Yeah. We met as neighbors, and she...
In the Chicago suburbs.
In the Chicago suburbs.
Lest we not forget, holler at our Chicagoans.
And what had happened was, Tanya Lee came running at me across the yards with her dog Lucky, shouting names at me while I just stood there frozen because she was interrupting me playing Charmed by myself. It's very hard being all three sisters.
We could talk about witches.
We could definitely talk about witches. I think that would maybe fall under lore.
Yes, that would definitely fall under the category
of lore. Yeah. Fun.
Yeah, and I exploded my personality at her, and then we had our first play date, and I said nothing.
She said nothing. She went from 100 to 0. It was like the reversal.
Which, if you know me, you know that is very weird.
It's very, very weird. We bonded over putting up Easter window clings. You know those like things that, I don't know.
And boy bands.
Boy bands, definitely. Well, that was what brought you out of your shell.
Yeah.
The Easter clings made you scared for some reason, and then...
The bunny's really terrifying. That's an awful bunny.
That's an awful... Maybe there's lore behind the Easter bunny.
Ooh. I'm sure there is.
I'm sure there is. I know there is for the Tooth Fairy.
What? Okay, wait, save it. I want to know about that someday.
Yeah. No, I think I said something like, do you listen to the Backstreet Boys?
Of course.
And it was...
Should we do a reenactment?
No.
Okay, maybe later.
Yeah, maybe later.
Maybe later.
No.
So, anyway.
Basically, we've been attached to the hip. We've been roommates for 15 years after being neighbors for 9, and
Yes.
here we are.
Here we are in Los Angeles, California, coming to you live. Not live. This is pre-recorded. Don't get excited.
Not live. No one wants that.
We've been in Los Angeles, oh gosh, for how old am I?
10-ish years.
Over 10 years.
No.
Can you tell we're really bad at math? Nobody ever asked us to do proper math. This is not, oh gosh. No. Okay, we're awful at math.
Awful at math.
But we're really good storytellers.
You will be the judge of that. We think we're really good storytellers.
I like your stories.
I like your stories.
So there we go. Who cares if we don't have an audience? We can just listen to each other talk. I think that's the point.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you my first experience with anything awful.
Okay.
So
this is our origin stories of awfulness.
This is it. So, this is a paranormal story, by the way. It's not a true crime.
Okay.
My family and I are living in St. Petersburg, Florida.
It's already awful.
We lived on a house that was on the 7th hole of a golf course. I'm not going to name the golf course because I don't know what kind of copyright issues there are yet. So
don't want to get sued.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
Plus, I don't want to scare anybody because I actually tried to Google this earlier today to see if there was actually any
like stories about a ghost on the golf course.
Yeah, there was not, unfortunately.
Darn.
Or if there is, I have not.
I should have done that. I didn't Google it.
Delved deep enough, but I was curious because it's a public property.
Yeah.
I mean, my experience was on a private property. It was on my house, at the house. Actually, we were renting this house. Anyway, long story short, my dad was out of town on a business trip, so I was sleeping in my mom's room with my mom.
Her mom will be a central character in this podcast.
Mona, we love Mona.
Mona.
Shout out.
French-Canadian queen.
Shout out to our Mona. Yeah, she's amazing. So I'm not a crazy person because I have a witness to my experience, and it is my mom. So essentially, we were sleeping, and I'll tell it from my mom's perspective first because she was the first person to see what we saw. She was sleeping, and she said that she felt a breath on her face.
Okay.
That woke her up, which I think at the time she probably assumed was my breath because I'm clingy. And she probably thought my child is breathing on my face.
Yeah.
Like they do. So she opens her eyes and she sees this woman who's like leaning on the side of her bed with her arms folded.
Okay.
With her like chin on her arms. I don't know if anybody can picture what this looks like, but pretty innocent, but also very creepy. And so my mom shouted, naturally, like you would when you see this woman crouched next to you.
Seems innocent.
So she shouts. I wake up because I hear her shouting.
Do you want me to do your mom shouting reenactment?
Yes.
There's a story.
That's a story for later.
Inside joke.
I'm sorry. I feel like there's going to be a lot of inside jokes that nobody's going to get.
Her mom screams in her sleep, and that's how it sounds.
Yes, when she sleep screams, it's... And then I was like, what happened? What were you dreaming about? She's like, I was screaming. I was like, well, you didn't sound like it. You sound like you were like frustrated with someone. Like, Anyway, so she screams and I wake up and I see this large woman in a muumuu. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's like a floral dress that women used to wear.
It is the middle-aged Floridian woman uniform.
Yes. So she floats over our bed and essentially disappears into a mirror that's in the restroom. That like the door was open, like it was an attached bathroom. Mm-hmm. She disappears into the mirror or whatever, and I lean over to my mom and I'm just like, who's that lady? And my mom was like, you saw her too? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, it's an angel. Like, go to bed, you know? Just tries to brush me off. And I go to sleep. And so the next morning, I, of course, ask her, I'm like, Mom, who was that lady in our room last night? And my mom was like, it was your grandma. My grandma had passed away. And she was like, it's your grandma. She was coming to say hello and to wish you well. And I was like, okay. And she was like, don't tell anybody about this at school. She was like, people are going to think you're crazy. And so, like, not 15 years, when I was 15, bad at math, wow. Like, 9 years later, we're in a LensCrafter of all places. And I brought it up again. I was like, Mom, do you remember when we lived in St. Petersburg in that house on the golf course? Do you remember when we saw that ghost lady? You told me it was Grandma, but that's not what Grandma looks like. So I know that wasn't Grandma. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you remember that. And that was the first time we had talked about it since I was a kid. So it was really interesting to kind of have that validated and have somebody else have experienced it with me for me to wrap my head around. Because I can be kind of a skeptic, as you know. Like,
yeah.
And I think it's just I'm skeptical out of fear because it scares the living daylights out of me.
Right.
But it definitely sparked a major interest in it all because for obvious reasons, I experienced something that I can't explain, and I'm very much a problem solver, and I'm very much like I need everything explained to me, and I like to learn, I like to understand how everything works, that it just kind of blew my mind. And there was like this other crazy thing that happened that you know about, but when I was a kid, I was probably about 8, maybe 9 tops. I don't actually know how old exactly it was. I think I was in the 2nd grade. We were renting a house while we were building another one. And this was in the suburbs of Chicago at this time. You can't tell, I moved around a lot as a kid. But we were in the suburbs of Chicago. This was before I met B. And
her life was empty.
Yes, my life was empty. That I had to create an imaginary friend. So there was this imaginary friend named Johnny who I could tell you what he looked like. He had this like little paperboy hat on. He was dressed like a little boy would dress in like the 1930s. He had like little suspenders on, and he was like a real thing. And but I always just had a really hyperactive imagination, so I'm kind of on the fence as to whether or not.
I just think the fact that like you could tell me what he was wearing, what he looked like, and it seemed to be like almost period clothes.
Yeah.
Like
so I
from like the 20s or 30s or something.
I still remember what he looks like.
Yeah.
I remember playing with him.
And you don't remember a lot about your childhood, which is a good side note. Like it's just been like Men in Blacked from her brain. So the fact that she remembers this imaginary ghost dude, like,
I don't know.
Crazy.
And he only existed in my imagination or in reality, I don't know, at that house. So I find that also equally strange.
But also, I remember you telling me he got mad at you once. Like, you remembered a story, he got mad at you because... No, you got mad at him because you wanted him to come inside and play, and he wouldn't come inside. He couldn't come in from the garage or something.
No, he came in. Yeah, he would play inside with me, but there was one day that he wouldn't come into the garage, and I don't know why.
Weird.
I don't know. It's weird that I remember, like, an argument I had with an imaginary friend or maybe a ghost friend. I don't know.
If you remember the address of that place, that might be worth looking into. Like,
yeah. Oh, I don't. I bet you my mom does, though.
I'm sure she does.
But so I asked my mom, I talked to her on the phone today, and I was like, hey, like, do you remember me having this imaginary friend named Johnny? And my mom was like, yeah, I remember Johnny, because she's like, I remember I used to come into your room. She's like, I remember one time I came into your room and you were playing, like with my toys or whatever, and I was talking, and my mom was like, who are you talking to? And I said, my friend. And my mom was like, what friend? And I was like, my friend Johnny. And my mom goes, okay, like, my mom, like, she just understands that I was an only child. Let's put that out there. So I could have had a very hyper imagination and we moved around a lot. You know, I lived in 11 different houses before we had built the final house, and the final house that we lived in, I was 9 years old when we moved into it. So just to imagine that I'd moved 11 times since before I was 9. So I could have had a very hyperactive imagination, but so she was like, okay, like, and brushed it off. And she would notice that I would like put out plates for him, and I would talk about him a lot. And my mom, like, when I brought it up on the phone today, I was like, do you think that maybe that could have been like an apparition or like something that I didn't imagine? And my mom was like, I never thought of that, but now that you say that, that actually makes a lot of sense, because you did look at me like, how can you not see him? Like, I would kind of like speak about him as if he really did exist.
Yeah, and kids experience ghosts differently than adults do. I don't know if it's because Yeah, we should do some research about that. I don't know if it's because like our imaginations are greater or
we're more open-minded, or
yeah,
I don't know.
We haven't been like closed off because of being, I don't know, cynical adults or something.
Yeah, that'd be something interesting. But those are my paranormal experiences. I personally, I mean, we've had some other little things here and there, but those I think are the most significant ones, and those are definitely the ones that like framed my interest in at least paranormal. And true crime was always something I was interested in, but obviously, thank God, I've never had any personal experiences with it.
No.
I just...
Not until we were much older. I wouldn't say it was a personal experience, but like a hometown murder happened when we were in our 20s.
Yeah.
But definitely we're...
Oh, God,
so it was horrible, and we'll get into that.
It was awful.
Eventually.
And not in a funny way.
Yeah, no, it's horrific. Not that there's anything funny about death and dying. We should probably say that.
Yes.
That we don't think there's anything funny about death, dying, torture, all these horrible things. And we're not sociopaths.
No, we just find comfort in being uncomfortable sometimes.
Like, my favorite form of adrenaline is being fake scared. Like, I like horror movies, and I like haunted houses and all that stuff. I like it because it's this jolt of adrenaline to your brain, but it's not real. You're not in real
and it's
danger.
Temporary.
Yeah,
like it's you're gonna be okay.
And your immediate reaction after being scared and realizing it's silly, it's not real, is to laugh. And so that's always been my favorite form ever since I was a kid. I mean, I was that weird kid. And Tanya, I don't know if you remember this, but like at your sleepovers, I would convince people your house was haunted, and we'd do seances. I think I remember. I think you were asleep after watching that dog movie, Napoleon or something.
Great movie.
Yeah, such a great movie.
I would watch that movie today.
You would
if you
still
let me.
absolutely watch that movie. But I gathered like Marlita and Lane and Marissa and I think Christina, and I pretended to know how to do a seance.
First of all, can I just say, like, all of our friends' names were like
so
like suburban children names. Marissa, Marlita. Shout out to all
Ashley.
our childhood friends that we love dearly. But such
are you guys millennials? I couldn't tell. Yes, we had a friend named Brittany.
Oh gosh. But
yeah, that was the kind of child I was.
Yes. And I always fell asleep before everybody else, and then everybody would do the scary things, and sometimes I would just pretend to sleep because I was terrified.
Yeah, because she didn't want to partake.
I still do have a lot of anxiety, and I did not know what it was when I was a kid, and so anything scary would just skyrocket my anxiety through the roof, and I did not know what it was or how to handle it, so I would just hide.
Yes. Yeah, a good story for Tanya and why we're doing this as well is the other day, maybe a couple weeks ago, I was extremely anxious. I told her I wanted to watch something lighthearted and fun, and her response was, "Have you seen the Lorena Bobbitt doc?" I was like, yes, lighthearted and fun. The woman who cut off her husband's penis after he sexually assaulted her.
I was like, if you're having a hard time, just watch something awful.
Let's watch Lorena Bobbitt.
It's going to make you feel better about your own life. God, that's so selfish.
No, it wasn't. I mean, it's completely selfish. Like, let's watch somebody else's pain and suffering so we don't put perspective on our pain and suffering. Anyway.
I want to hear your story.
Yeah, so
I've heard some of it, but I deliberately didn't want you to tell me again until we were recording because I know how effed up it is.
Yeah.
So
I should probably preface this by saying, like, my family has always, this is a paranormal story as well, my family has always had paranormal activity happening to them, following them, like, my brother has a lot of stories, and maybe one day we'll get him on to tell them.
Yes.
My mom has a lot of stories. My aunt has a lot of stories. My great-grandmother used to hold seances. She lived in rural Alabama, and the ladies in the town knew, you go to Annie Mae if you want to reach somebody on the other side.
Oh, my God.
And they would pay her, and they would, late at night, she'd do a seance, and it caused all these things to happen in her house. My mom still remembers it.
Wow.
Because my mom lived with her for a time period. So this is just, stuff has always been happening to my family. And this specific instance is the first time I ever remember experiencing paranormal activity. I guess the first time was more when my dog died. But that doesn't really count so much. It's not a big story. When I was like 6 years old, we put our dog down and buried him in the backyard. And every night after he passed away, my bedroom door would open and he would get up on the bed and I'd feel him get up on the bed and curl up in a ball at my feet. And I was just like, okay, that's normal.
Angel baby.
Yeah, but that's not a good story.
What a good boy he is.
This story is about my Aunt Donna's house.
I don't want to talk about Yipper.
No, yeah, Yipper was the dog. Great name.
I'd rather talk about Yipper.
So my Aunt Donna is my mom's baby sister. And she lived in this like old farmhouse that was off in a wooded area of Lamont, Illinois. And if anybody knows anything about Illinois suburban ghost history, then Archer Avenue means something to you.
Yes.
And this house was off of Archer Avenue.
Oh.
Archer Avenue is notoriously one of the most haunted roads in the States, let alone just in Illinois alone.
Yeah. We could probably do a whole
billions of stories.
couple episodes on Archer Avenue.
But anyway, so they moved in. She moved in with her husband. This was before they had Ryan. I was probably, it's probably when I was between 7 and 9. And I didn't go over there that much. Mm-hmm. But whenever I did, it was just, I never felt comfortable. The way that her house was set up, you'd walk in and it was her kitchen and she had like a little kitchen table. And then she had her stairwell. Mm-hmm. To the side of the kitchen table, and she had the stairwell like sectioned off with a curtain, so it was just a curtain rod.
Is this the house that we were in when we babysat Ryan that one
No,
day?
this was the house
trying
afterwards.
to say Fween instead of green.
Yeah, no, this is
Fween.
Fween.
Yeah.
No, that was the house they got after.
Okay, so I didn't see this house.
No, Ryan never. I don't know if Ryan. He might have been born in this house, but I don't know if he ever officially lived.
Oh, it was before. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And they used to throw these like epic 4th of July parties. They were bikers at that time, so it was like all their biker friends, and they had this huge field.
Biker, hippie.
Yeah, and
love them.
My uncle would put on this huge like fireworks display, and I was always so scared to have to go in her house to go to the bathroom, because as soon as you walked in that house, you just had this overwhelming feeling like you weren't alone, even when you were.
Woof.
And I specifically remember my mom leaving me to sit with my cousin Rachel at her kitchen table. And she went outside and just told us to sit there. We might have been in trouble. It's a fair chance. Me and Rachel got in trouble a lot. And I got this overwhelming feeling like I was being watched through the curtain that leads up to the upstairs.
Yucky. I don't like this.
So I, peeked over there, and the curtain kind of moved to the side, and I don't remember seeing somebody standing there looking, but I remember so vividly feeling somebody standing peeking through that curtain that nice. I can see it in my mind.
That's polite.
And I was just talking to my mom about this on the phone the other day, and she had an instance where she was sitting at the kitchen table and she looked over and saw somebody watching her through the curtain.
Ew, oh my God, I got literally goosies all over my body. Oh, yucky, I don't like this. Why are we doing this?
The staircase led up to like their bedroom and also like the attic.
Sure, of course it does.
And when they moved in, there was stuff from the previous owners in the attic that my aunt had just never gone through. And I'll get to that later. But some of my aunt's stories, and she would call my mom panicking because she would be at that house by herself a lot. And she would call my mom scared out of her mind because things were happening. Like this entity would turn the lights off on her all the time. I mean, basically cut the power on her all the time.
Did they ever figure out, I mean, you might get to this, but did they ever figure out who it was?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll get to that.
Okay.
Or she would be sitting there watching TV and it would start turning on the radio and messing with the radio and trying to find like old stations on the radio.
Dope. Thank you, man. Turn it off, please.
And it would bang around upstairs. And especially when it wanted her attention. If she was watching TV, it would start banging around upstairs.
Oh, yes, I remember a detail about this. Yes.
To the point where she would have to go, shut up. She like would yell at it to stop, and it would stop. And then as soon as she was like, okay, thank you, it would get louder. Like it would almost get angry at her for telling it to shut up. And it would watch her in the shower.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I remember you telling me about, and I was like, oh no, thank you, I do not
So
want this.
she
I do not
remembers-
consent.
Yeah. She remembers, no means no. She remembers being in the shower and the water was still hot. The water hadn't gone cold, but she got freezing.
Okay.
And she remembers being afraid to turn around and look over her shoulder because she knew somebody was in the shower with her.
Have you noticed how much more I've been drinking my wine?
Yeah, she's drinking wine.
Since you...
One of the scariest stories to me was Donna was at home by herself cooking dinner. And the door leading into her kitchen from the outside started rattling.
The door from the kit, like it's like a back door or something like that?
To come into her house, you came into the kitchen from the backyard. And that door started rattling.
Why?
But there was like a screened-in porch. So you walked into the screened-in porch, then you got to the door into the kitchen.
Uh-huh.
It was the door into the kitchen that was rattling, but the screened-in porch door was locked.
No.
And she
can't
looked and she saw a shadow of a person and trying to get into her house. So she called my mom because she thought somebody was breaking into her house. Why she didn't call 911?
Yeah, I was like, Rose, help me, you're strong.
So she thought someone was breaking into her house. So she started yelling, I have a shotgun. Like I'm holding the shotgun to the door. If you don't leave, I'm gonna pull the trigger. And it stopped shaking, but the thing was she could see the shadow of the person trying to break in, and when she said that, the shadow just disappeared. It didn't walk away.
Where did it go?
It didn't go out through the side door. It just disappeared.
Okay. Go back to
It
hell.
was just gone. So anyway, this was probably like the culmination. This is the big thing that happened to her. She was in the attic going through boxes. And she found this picture of this woman, and from like the 1920s, she was in a bathing suit when she found this picture. And when she grabbed this picture and held it, the door to the attic came off its hinges and flew across the room and hit the wall.
I don't like, no.
Like, whatever that was, he did not like her looking at his wife.
Somebody should have made a documentary about this house.
Then.
Oh, no, then. Why did you do that?
She was gardening in her backyard.
Oh, gosh.
And stumbled across tiny, tiny bones.
I don't know this part of the story.
Upon further inspection, she found a miniature graveyard in her backyard where she was trying to plant a garden. She called people out to investigate it, and it was like unmarked graves of children.
Oh,
like babies.
Dear God.
So my aunt did research.
So awful.
Yeah. My aunt did research. She found out the previous owners of the house, like in the 20s, 30s, was a doctor who had a wife. He had no children, and it appeared like his wife had a lot of stillbirths and miscarriages. So they believe that the babies that were buried in the backyard were his children.
Oh.
And his wife had given birth to these babies or miscarried these babies, and he'd buried them back there.
Okay.
And when my aunt found that picture of his wife, he got angry because he's protective of her.
Oh.
So when my aunt got pregnant, he got protective of my aunt and started messing with my aunt's husband. He would wake him up in the middle of the night, sit on the bed. He started messing with Dan way more than Donna. So they moved because my aunt did not feel safe in that house having a baby because she thought he's going to do something to the baby.
Right. I was going to say, did they move because of the house? Yeah.
Yes. Wow. So they moved because of the house. The house was too active. And then my mom told me while I was asking her about this recently that house is now an urgent care center.
No. What?
And they've moved the bodies.
Doesn't that stir up like more paranormal?
Yes. And also, I just find it interesting that it was a doctor's house, and now it's an urgent care center.
Oh, that's really, I didn't even think about that and put that together.
It's like, does he think he's at work every day now? Like, I want to
like trauma over the door.
I know. Oh my God, I know. Can you imagine that happening?
No.
Horrible.
No.
Horrible.
This is why I don't, like, I want a house. I would love to live in a house, but I'm like,
what if it's haunted?
Can you please put this in the deed? Is it haunted?
Yes.
There should be like that should be part of selling questions. Hi.
Is it haunted?
How long has the air conditioning been installed? Is it haunted?
Well, you have to like, yeah, they have to disclose if there's been a murder.
Sure.
So I think they should have to disclose if there's been paranormal activity.
Oh,
Horrible, right?
I can't even think about it. We also lived in an apartment.
That was super haunted.
So, okay, I'm going to talk about you for a second.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't think you mentioned it, but B is a bit of an empath.
No, I didn't mention it.
Like,
but yeah, we can talk about it. It's not like, I wouldn't say it's, and you can call my shit whatever. You can say that, like, you don't believe me. I know what I've experienced, and that's all that matters. I fully believe in mediums and psychics. I know that there are definitely people out there who are crap.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. I've personally had an instance with a psychic medium who there is no freaking way she could have known the things that she knew.
Right. I mean, if you feel comfortable, eventually we should talk about it.
Yeah,
It was a really cool story.
We'll definitely talk about it. I need my mom's permission, but we'll definitely talk about it. But anyway, I've always had things happen to me, or if I go to like a haunted place that's like super haunted, I would tend to get like, I would just feel nauseous, or like all my energy was drained, and when I was feeling like that, then something would end up happening. Like somebody if we were on a ghost tour, would take a picture and there would be something in the picture, or just something would always occur, and it was almost like it was like taking my energy to show up or something. And I've had instances where I've been able to tell somebody, I've been able to recall history of a place before they tell it to us. Like we went to the Queen Mary. I was able to talk about this 15-year-old boy that had died there and what he went through when I didn't know the story at all.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So yeah, there are like weird things like that. And we lived in an apartment that was crazy haunted, and I can let Tanya talk about it.
I mean, I didn't really have any personal experiences with the apartment, but I do remember the little things that I experienced, which weren't really a big deal in hindsight, but like now knowing what you had experienced in that house, which I think you shielded me from a lot because you knew how anxious paranormal stuff makes me, which is interesting that now we're recording a podcast that we will be discussing paranormal things every now and then. But yeah, it really freaked me out. But I remember like we had one of those dimmer lights, and I remember it would like flicker all the time as if someone was playing with the and we would look at the dimmer and like the lights would kind of like be flickering. Hello, Moosh.
We have a feline named Moosh who's trying to join the podcast.
What, do you have something to say?
No, he has nothing to say.
All right, see you later. And then I remember like our TV would turn on and off all the time. That would happen pretty frequently without our doing. And
you saw the picture.
Yeah.
There's this picture, and maybe one day when I tell the full story, we'll put it up on like our social media or something.
Yeah.
Of I took a picture of myself in a mirror, old school selfie style, and it was dark because we were setting up for the Halloween party. The only thing that was behind me was our front door. There wasn't any wreath or anything on the front door.
No.
And in the picture, there is like a floating head behind my shoulder.
And this was our first, by the way, apartment in downtown Chicago.
By ourselves. We were like 19.
Yeah, we were kids. First time living on our own, of course, the place is haunted.
Like bad haunted, like growling spirit.
It was so cheap.
It was not cheap.
Well, now in hindsight,
no.
I'm like, paying like $2,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment and like really nice part of Chicago. That sounds great.
Amazing. That's the horror story.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Rent prices.
How awful.
How awful. But yeah, we'll get to that story. But that was probably the most haunted I've ever been in a situation. It didn't let me sleep in my own bedroom for 6 months. Ugh. It destroyed my bathroom. Messed with the kitchen.
Ugh.
It's good times.
Good times.
It's good times. It's really fun to have a paranormal nervous breakdown while trying to graduate from college.
Yeah.
Yay!
What fun.
What fun.
Oh gosh. Well, we should tell everybody something wonderful to palate cleanse a little bit of this awfulness.
That's fair.
So I know you have some wonderful things to say.
I do. So I don't know if you guys have looked outside recently, but we're in the middle of a pandemic. And little info about Tanya Lee and me. Tanya's in TV production, so her world came to a halt for several months, but she's back on set.
Back on the grind.
And I work in the bridal industry, and as you can imagine, that doesn't exist anymore. Nobody's getting married. Nobody's buying anything for weddings. So I had to leave my very stable, very nice job and find a new life course. I was expecting to have to do Instacart or Postmate deliveries or something, and I got way luckier than that and just got a job today with full benefits, and your girl's gonna be leasing luxury apartments in downtown LA.
Woo!
Woohoo! So
We're
yeah,
very
that's
excited.
wonderful.
We're celebrating tonight.
And that's one, celebrating with ginger ale, because I can't drink. Ulcers are fun, guys. Stress ulcers are fun.
Yeehaw. You said yeehaw way too many times.
I think that was, we should have a yeehaw quota. Once you've reached 3 yeehaws, there's no more yeehaws.
And then you drink.
And you drink.
Oh,
What's your wonderful?
Well, this is going to sound really cheesy, but probably this podcast.
Oh, you've really been enjoying it.
I've been really enjoying prepping for it and getting organized, and I'm so excited to get it started. So don't worry, my wonderful will not be every week recording this podcast tonight.
It might be.
It might be.
Well, another thing to understand about Tanya is she once said to me, I only get angry 3 times a year. Well, that is definitely not me. I get angry about 3 times a day.
We're total opposites.
We are total opposites.
But you know what they say?
Opposites attract, 'cause an affection is something to
This is your solo, girl. Get it.
We go together.
Okay, so
Who's Paula?
the long-awaited moment that only B and I have been waiting for this entire episode is the unveiling of what we will cover the next episode. So how we're doing this is we got a fishbowl, and we're basically...
It's actually a punch bowl.
Well, we've gone fishing.
Can you hear it?
This
is my category.
That's her category. She hasn't opened it yet.
Category is...
And the category. So she's going to open this category, and it's going to say either one of 5 things. It's going to say true crime, paranormal, lore, celebrity deaths, or cults.
Awesome.
So once you open it, it will tell you your category, and then you can go off and research whatever story you want, but you can't tell me all week.
Right. That's the hard part.
Yeah, so you can't tell me. I know, because we talk about everything. Yeah. We're going to have to keep this a secret from me. Or not the category, but we're going to keep the subject matter.
Subject line, yep.
A secret from each other all week so that we can reveal it live on the podcast so that you guys get...
Live, not live.
Live, not live. So you guys get natural reactions while we're reading it. So, drum roll. I will drum roll for you to read your category.
Wait.
This is a lap drum roll.
Okay.
Let's go.
I'm working on it. Lore.
Oh, that's a fun one.
That is a fun one.
Okay, so you're going to cover a story about lore. Hey.
That looks like Lorf.
Okay, well, it says lore. You knew it said lore.
Lorf.
Okay, do you want a drum roll for me? I'm so excited.
Am I going to be jealous?
Celeb deaths!
Oh, fun! It's different than paranormal. I'm kind of happy about that.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Okay.
I mean, we live in Hollyweird, so...
We got some stories.
Outside of Hollyweird.
So we'll put these little pieces of paper aside so that we won't do these again for a minute.
The next one.
And then, so we'll have some more fun options.
Yeah. But one thing we haven't said is, in the upcoming episodes, if y'all like us and want to see what we have to say, we have a ton of friends and family that we want to have on to tell their stories. Yes. My brother has had some really crazy experiences. He lived in what could have possibly been a demonically possessed house. So he has that kind of fun to talk about. All of our friends are really into this. And eventually we want to, do podcasts from locations like the Queen Mary or the Roosevelt Hotel.
Yes.
We have a friend with a spirit box we want to utilize. Just lots of fun, guys.
Yes. It's going to be a blast.
Oh, so follow our social media.
Yes.
How
we
Awful
are
Podcast.
How Awful Podcast. We're on Instagram and Twitter, YouTube. You can also find us at howawfulpodcast.com.
Yep.
And you can email us with any sort of commentary or just to say hello. We're very
Just
excited.
be nice. The world's bad enough.
Yeah, treat people with kindness.
Our patron saint Harry Styles said that.
Need we remind you we bonded over boy bands, so
Yeah, and-
cut us some slack.
So he will be brought up often.
but if
he's
you want-
going to be a special guest.
Oh,
Just go with
she
it.
just manifested that.
The manifest destiny.
I don't think Harry Styles. Oh, doesn't he live in a haunted house?
It sounded like you were about to say Jerry Styles.
I don't think Jerry
He
Styles.
did live in a haunted house. We could tell Harry Styles' haunted house story.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Listen-
Maybe we'll just manifest that he'll come talk to us.
Yeah,
someday.
it'll be fine because he so does podcasts.
He so does podcasts. Lovely. But anyway, if you want to talk to us, if you have something to say, if you want to talk about Harry Styles, that's cool too.
Yep.
Where you can find us at howawfulpodcast@gmail.com.
Woo!
Thanks for listening. If
I
there's
became a
anybody
woo
out
girl.
there, we love you. We welcome you all.
How awful.
How awful.
As always, we've been B and Tanya Lee. Our logo was created by MJ Savard, and our theme music courtesy of Nikki Lou.